So I think we're live. I'm gonna try and set up my microphone so it's not super visible, but I'm afraid it's not gonna be possible to not have it on screen. So today's live is my very first live on this YouTube channel. Maybe I should just hold the microphone. It's gonna be a little bit more awkward, but it works anyway. So welcome to today's live stream. It's the very first live stream on this channel, my book channel. And for today's video, I'm gonna talk about Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I'm still adjusting a few things, making sure everything's fine. I'm not using my usual video setup, as you can probably tell from the quality if you're rewatching this afterwards. I'm using the webcam that's built in on my laptop, and I'm using an external microphone that is meant for podcasting, etc. But I didn't have anything to put it on, so I'm just going to hold it. For today's live stream, I'm going to be doing the book discussion of Quicksilver by Callie Hart, which was our book for the month of February. So I'm doing a monthly book club. We're going to do it for February, March, and April. So I'm going to do it 3 times and then see if this is something that you want to participate in or not. And also if we enjoy doing it, because for me, reading is something that I love to do. But once I get pressured into reading a specific book, it gets harder to actually read it. The people who are joining, because I see there's 2 people here, could you please write something in the chat so I can see if everything is working properly? Can you hear me? That's maybe also a very good question. I'm getting messages, but not from this, so I'm going to hide my phone for now. So welcome to the live stream for those of you who are joining live. Welcome, Fix My Life podcast. Hi. Hello, lovely. You are one of the people from the book club in Ghent that I love to go to if I'm actually able to, and if I've read the book, of course. So nice to see you. So nice to have you here, because honestly, I was expecting for no one to join. So 3 people is already amazing to me, and I'm super grateful that you're here. So as mentioned, today I'm going to be talking about Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I managed to finish this book 2 days ago. It was a bit chunkier and a bit heavier than I anticipated. I'm going to start with a more or less spoiler-free introduction of the book, and then we're going to get into the characters, the world building, and also the magic systems, etc. I actually went in relatively blind into this book. Like, I saw the cover and like it is very like fae reminding, but it wasn't like in your face romantasy. So I was really pleasantly surprised by the book. So have you all read Quicksilver, or haven't you maybe gotten to it yet? And YouTube had a little pop-up. So Lovely has read the book. Amazing. So I'm not the only one. Yeah, I actually read the book on ebook, but then when I went to Waterstones quite recently, I saw it there in the hardcover edition, and it just looked so pretty with like I don't know how well you can see it with the webcam quality, but the silver on it was so gorgeous. So yeah, I'm really happy that I got my hands on, even if it's a normal hardcover edition, I'm really happy I have it physically. So we're going to get into the contents of the book now. So for everyone who is not watching this live, we're going to first talk about the book a little bit vaguely, as I'm going to tell it, because once I start talking about the actual contents, there are going to be spoilers. So if you haven't read the book yet and you're watching this, the first few minutes are going to be fine. And then I will like clearly tell you when we're getting into spoiler territory, where I'm going to go into the details and the nitty-gritty of this book. First things first, this book is not a young adult fantasy book. That is something that is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine, is that a lot of books nowadays are being marketed as like young adult fantasy, even if they are not, because like Fourth Wing, like Akotar, this book has like very sexual content in it. Fix My Life podcast is supposed to be working. Well, this is work. Well, for me it is, at least. Maybe not for you watching a live stream. Anyways, so Definitely not a YA fantasy. It is a fae based fantasy, but it wasn't in your face from the start of the book. Fae. The Fae come in later into the story. Now, our female main character is also 24, I believe, at the start of the book. So she's not like this 16-year-old. And the start of the book, you really get to know what type of person the main character is. Her name is Saris or Saris. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It has all of the pronunciations at the beginning of the book, but I honestly just skipped them. And she lives in a city where there is a class system. So you have tier 1, which is like the rich, tier 2, which is the normal people, and then tier 3 is kind of the slums. And she lives in tier 3, and she's trying to survive there. And I think the main resource that they were like, that was difficult to get is water. So water is like a very big scarcity in this city that she lives in. I believe it's a desert city, but only the start of the book is there. So you notice that like she has to steal in order to survive. And at the start of the book, she is actually stealing something, and she manages to get away from being caught and even steal something that is more important than the thing that she was stealing when she was caught. So that was quite funny. I found that the book was well written in a way that it wasn't too predictable. And I also felt with the introduction of our main character that she was portrayed not as this like weak human girl that doesn't know anything. Like with Akotar, I found that the portrayal of the main character was a little bit like, oh, she's just this normal girl and she doesn't know anything. Whereas for this book with Saris, she has a lot of knowledge. She knows how to survive. She knows how to fight. She knows how to craft things. She's working with a glass blower at the beginning of the book, but she also crafts with metal every now and then. So our main character is not like weak, is basically what I'm trying to say. Even if because they don't get enough food and enough water, etc., they are physically not in the best condition in the area that she lives in. So for the people in the chat that have read the book, there's another one who joined. Hi, Mrs. C. For the people in the chat, what was your first impression of Ceres, of our female main character? What did you like about her? What did you maybe not like about her? Or about the city where she lives, where she spent her time? What were your thoughts on her? And I did make a little cheat sheet for myself with the characters and with the things that I absolutely want to talk about, because whenever I get excited about something, I tend to ramble on and forget some of the points that I'm making. So I also do this whenever I create a video. I always make like a basic outline so I don't forget anything. Yeah, definitely smart and quick thinking. Yes, I think that was one of the main traits that I liked about her as well. Like she comes from a poor uprising or like upbringing, but you do and you don't notice it. You notice it because she has to be very, very resourceful with what she has and what is around her and what's available. But she doesn't let that hold her down. So hi, Ona. Ona is one of my close friends. I'm very curious. Ona, have you read Quicksilver yet or not? So our main character, Saris, a lot of you agree that we like her. Yeah, brave and talented. I can't climb a wall while being chased by. I can't climb a wall at all. I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of falling. So climbing on a wall and like having that fear of falling down, for me, like, hell no. You sometimes have these like people who do rock climbing and like even indoors with harnesses, 2 steps. That's it. So when we had the scene where she was climbing up the wall, I was like, I would never. I would be like stuck in place and it would just pull me off the wall, I guess. So yeah. Most books have a girl in distress, but she could handle her own. Yeah, exactly. That's what I loved about her most, is that like she is not weak. She's her own made person, and she doesn't need the male counterpart of the book to become interesting. So I'm gonna read a few more comments. Brave and talented. Like that she had more grounded personality and job. It fit the world very well. Yes. The story started in the middle of the action scene. Yes, exactly. I love that too, because a lot of books start with like an introduction of the world or how it came to be to how it is. And now it was like, it felt a little bit, maybe not the best comparison, you know, the Indiana Jones movies, when you start when he's stealing something and running away and all the action happens. That's a little bit what it felt like to me. Like you were thrown into the action straight away. You got to know the main character straight away from those actions, and I really enjoyed it. Ona didn't like her in the beginning. She had to grow on me. Yes, I get that as well. At first, I was scared because it was, again, like the lower class upbringing. She has a brother. She doesn't have her parents anymore. I was like, oh no, are we going to fall into the same pity trap that we have a lot of times in these types of books? But we didn't. So I'm very happy that she actually was someone with a little bit of character depth and with a little bit more interesting things going on than just being pretty. Like, I'm not exactly sure when we got physically introduced to her, like what she looks like, because at this point, I can only remember her from the tattoos that she gets at the end of the book. So this is also the moment that I'm going to tell people who are watching this that have not read the book yet. We're going into spoiler territory. Right now, we have only talked about the beginning of the book, where we get the introduction to our main character, Ceres. But now we're going to jump into what happens in the rest of the book. So beware if you are still watching now and you haven't read this book yet, spoilers. So, as an older sister, I totally understood her frustration with her dumb brother. Fellow older sister here. My brother is actually only a year younger than me, but it feels like he's 5 years younger than me at least. And he's not making the best life decisions. So hashtag relatable. Yeah. So we have Ceres and her brother. I keep forgetting his name, Hayden. Her brother Hayden, at the beginning of the book, he gets in trouble for gambling. So they make money doing their tasks. So she helps at the glass blower. I don't actually know what Hayden does as a job, because we only got into Ceres's job and like how she lives, etc. So if anyone knows what Hayden was up to in the beginning of the book, except for gambling and wasting all their money, and then Ceres having to save him again. If anyone knows, feel free to let me know, because I have not a single clue what he actually does. So yeah, her younger brother and her live together. I know they have, like, when their mother died a few years ago, Hayden's job is making poor life decisions. Can we flag the best comments of this live stream? Oh, genius. I felt Hayden was just there to make Ceres more interesting and bound to the human world. Yeah, that's true. I felt that, and also the person who's teaching her the glass blower, I really can. I don't even have his name written down, like the old man. So Ceres and Hayden's parents died a few years ago, or at least their mother, who was still in the picture, and then they got cast out of their house somehow. So now they're living like in the attic and like running from one point to the other to like try and have a place to be. Yes, Ona has the best comments so far of this entire live stream. Go Ona. Ona is also the person, when she's in Belgium, we go to the bookshops together, and we just, the entire day that we're together, we're like giving hot takes on books together. And it's amazing. So looking forward to seeing Ona in real life again. We also buddy read a book that we both didn't enjoy, and it was very fun to discuss it. Anyways, so we have Ceres. Beginning of the book, she steals something very important. It is like a piece of golden armor from the Queen's Royal Guard, if I'm not mistaken. That piece of armor is super important, and she actually gets not really chased because she climbs over the wall and manages to escape. But her brother gets the piece of armor while she's trying to get him out of his gambling debt in a bar. I think that's what happens at the beginning of the book. Anyhow, she's caught. The person in the bar comes back later in the book, and he is called Carrion. Carrion Swift, or at least that's the name that he goes by at the beginning of the book. And he's kind of like, they are not dating, but they have slept together because he has money. I think he's second class, if not third. I'm not sure. There's people who love Carrion. I personally found Carrion an annoying piece of shit. I'm allowed to swear on YouTube, right? But he grew on me. So we have like the third main character, or Hayden is not a main character. So one of the other main characters that gets introduced very fast into the book is Carrion, and Carrion comes back later. But Ceres is caught from stealing the piece of armor, or Hayden gets caught and she claims responsibility. I can't really remember. And she also goes to the glassblower's forge to try and melt the piece of armor to use the metals for something else, but the glassblower doesn't want to be associated with her doing the metal casting, etc. So Carrion runs the third. Yes, exactly. What else did we have? So Ceres gets caught. Elrond, that's his name. So the old man who's kind of like, he's not their father, but he felt a little bit like a father figure to me at the beginning of the book of Ceres and her brother Hayden, because Ceres actually is his apprentice or working with him in his glassblower's job. So glass is something very expensive. So Ceres makes money by working for Elrond in the glassblower shop, but it's not enough to sustain their life because life is hella expensive and water is like the scarcest resource there. So she also steals water and other stuff, basically. So ends up getting caught and getting dragged in front of the queen, whose name also escapes me. It comes back at the end of the book. I'm going to quickly read through the comments. So right now at the point where it's like chapter 2 or chapter 3, where Ceres is getting caught and being captured by the actual Kingsguard and being taken to the castle. So let's read a little bit of the comments. Carrion needed to grow on me too. He was an annoying ass in the beginning where he found himself too important, but he became more fun later in the book. Yes. Up until we had the switch of scenery, as I'm going to delicately call it right now, I didn't like Carrion. I was like, what the hell? Even when Kingfisher actually dragged him into the other realm, I was like, ugh, why? Can't they just kill him or something? But like when he becomes more involved in what's actually happening is when I started to appreciate him for the character that he was. I think he was intentionally meant to be a little bit annoying. But yeah, there's theories about Elrond just the way he's described. Yes, exactly. I think so too. And the fact that he is mentioned still in the later parts of the book, because Ceres is still trying to save Hayden and Elrond from the realm that they are in to the one that she is in now. It makes it feel like there's more going on there. And also, I don't believe that Carrion is the only one of the not entirely human humans, delicate description, that is in the other realm. I don't believe it. I don't believe they're the only ones who crossed over at the moment of war. So maybe a little bit of background information. So we have the moment where Ceres gets caught. She gets to the queen, to her castle, and one of the guards is going to try and kill her. I think that's the scene that happens next. So she's getting like yelled at by the queen, and the queen goes, you need to be killed, because that's all they do. They don't have like a justice system. They don't have anything. It's just the queen says this, so it happens. I'm going to quickly read the comments because there's a lot popping up right now. Carrion was an annoyingly funny guy to Ceres. Yes, yeah, that's true. Wise as, but smart and thinking straight. Yeah, at the beginning, I thought that he was maybe there for like, not comical relief, but just to tone down the seriousness of the book. But like later on, it turns out he's actually smart. Like, who would have thought? And yes, the moment that Fisher brings him out instead of Hayden, it was really funny. And I was like, oh my God, how even? Same, I also laughed my ass off when he wrote him. I was like, this is not the right person. Like, how even? And then also the way he described it, like he smells of you, like he stinks, basically. That, yeah. And then afterwards we discovered the washing scene. It was a little bit like, why? So I don't believe that either. I think Elrond knew that Ceres was important. Maybe, yes. And the queen is a lunatic. Yes. I didn't really like her. And at the end, when everything came back, I was not shocked. I kind of knew that between Malcolm and the queen, whose name I don't remember, there was something going on between them, because it's like too big of a coincidence to have like two bad guys with the same mission not being involved together. Yeah, the washing scene. Anyhow, it's back to our story, because otherwise I'm gonna get all scrambled up with the timelines and everything that happens. Ceres gets nearly killed by the guard that takes her like to the queen for judging, if you can call it judging. But Ceres, at the first part of the book, she also mentions that she hears like a ringing sound from metals. And in the room that she's brought in, she hears a ringing sound and she sees a sword, and she reaches for that sword as she's being killed, basically. And she tries to fight back as much as possible. I think she also has a dagger on her, or it's been taken before she's actually put like up front for being killed, judging, basically. But that's when things get interesting, because when she reaches for that sword is when the pool of, they describe it as liquid metal. At the moment that it liquefies, it's like, yeah, it's a metal pool, best way to describe it. And if you've seen the cover of the book, you see what the metal on the figure's face looked like. So that's what I saw it as from the beginning. So a figure comes out of the liquid metal. He puts, I think it was a coin, like the jewelry around her neck, and tells to Ceres that she's not allowed to die. She just killed the Queen's Guard, or almost killed him. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, because the book is written from her point of view. So we see that she's like nearly dying. It was a very gory scene as well. So if you don't like gore, that scene was impactful, to say the least. And then she's taken somewhere through the silver pool, and that's where there is like a blackout. And this was like a pivotal moment of the book, because we go from Zilvaren, so the desert city that she lives in, the desert kingdom, I even think it is. It is ruled by the oppressive, undying queen. Even my research didn't, even my notes don't have her name. So if anyone has her name, feel free to help out, but it's not important. The queen gave me Amarantha vibes, just crazy bitch, yes. It's like she's immortal, whereas the other people in the city are just humans, normal humans. Magda. It's not Magda, I think, but it could have been something Bellatrix-ish, but I can't remember. Like side characters that I don't care about, I just forget their names. It's very typical of me to not remember names of characters that I don't care about. Anyway, so that's when we get to the other realm. Yeah, she reaches out for the sword as she's bleeding out and almost eviscerated. Yeah, I think she had the dagger on her. The dagger that's like strapped to the leg, I think it was. So yes, I'm quickly reading the comments. If anyone has any input on the fight scene before we transition, then yes. So the scene was brutal. Wasn't expecting it to be so descriptive. Yeah, I at the beginning, I thought I still was in my head reading a YA book, and then that fight happened and was like, this is a bit much for YA. And then, yeah, the romantic scenes at the end of the book are definitely not YA. But this book is in most bookshops with the YA books, just so everyone is aware of why I was confused. The dagger melts and attacks the soldier trying to kill the dagger. Yeah, but that's the sword that she reaches for. But I think at the beginning of the fight between her and the it's not the guard, basically. I think she also had a dagger, and that was her own dagger that she already had before, I think. I could be mistaken, but like she holds up a good fight. So then we transition to another realm. So basically, the Quicksilver pools are portals, kind of, or ways to travel between different realms. So after, yeah, I'm seeing comments about YA books. This fuels my rage about the differentiation between YA and adult fantasy so much. So sorry, not sorry. Have to say, in Europe, they don't know the difference between YA and adult. Sometimes I see YA with the adult and the other way around. Yeah. Book that I never want to read again. The Cat and Mouse Duet. It was with the YA fantasy. First of all, definitely not YA. And second of all, my opinion, not fantasy. And also, The Coven and The Cursed was also with the YA books. In most bookshops that I've went to, Akotar, all of them, all of the Sarah Yema's books are with the YA fantasy in a lot of bookshops. Haunting Adeline, yeah. Haunting Adeline is not YA. I'm used to quite a bit of shock in my books. I would never read those books again and never recommend them to anyone. Yeah, someone needs to speak to the manager. The thing is, I spoke to the people at Waterstones Brussels about Haunting and Hunting Adeline because they were both in the YA section and in their romance book section. I was like, do you know what those books are? Oh no, we just saw it, that it's like a hyped book talk book. I was like, yeah, it's about this, this, and this. And they looked at me, they pulled the books from the shelves. They put them on a cart separately, and then 10 minutes later, another employee just put them right back on the shelf. So say they don't care. Yeah, it's the stalker vibe thing. It's worse than just a stalker vibe thing. Yeah, the bombastic side. Yeah. Anyhow, back to Quicksilver. Because this book was actually good, especially if we compare it to the trash that Haunting and Hunting Adeline was, in my humble opinion. It was marketed as a fantasy dark romance, but it's not a fantasy dark romance. Yeah, Ona, if Ona would make a YouTube channel, she would be so popular because she has no filter and she's hilarious. Like, one of the main reasons I think that we are still friends is because with each other talking about books, we have zero filter, and it's amazing. Okay. I'm thinking about it. You should definitely. I think it would be so interesting because Ona reads a lot. If you think that me with my 50 to 70 books a year, I read a lot, she's insane. Like a book a day. No, that's not true. But she reads a lot, and she has very good and true opinions about books, and she doesn't let her opinion be influenced by media. So I think that's a very good thing. Yeah, you read 109 books last year, so yeah. I would never, I don't know how I would. Like, I struggle, like, this shelf are all of the new books that don't fit on my TBR shelf on the other bookshelf. And I took about 2 weeks to read Quicksilver because I didn't have time. And like, I think you would have read it in 3 days. Possibly. So back to Quicksilver. Fix My Life podcast. If you want to tell your real name so it's easier for me to like reference to you, says, I loved how Ceres automatically thinks it's death coming out of the Quicksilver pool coming together. And of course she thinks he's hot. But yeah, okay, I get it, where you think it's like death coming to get you. Nela. Okay, hi Nela. Thank you for commenting. I'm gonna try and remember your name. I should have bought a pen or gotten a pen with me. Anyhow, we are getting to the moment that Ceres is killed in the throne room, opens the Quicksilver. She doesn't know she opens it, but she does. And then death comes for her. So he's basically described as this figure dressed in all black, black wavy hair. I don't think the first moment we talk about him, we actually have the information that he has pointed ears. I don't think so, because I definitely didn't read it or remember it for when later in the book. But then we have a blackout. And when our character Ceres awakens again, she is in this bed in this like very pretty room, and she's actually being attended to by Everlane, who is called Lane almost the entire part of the book. And I love the full name Everlane, but I hate it Lane. Lane is just like, get into the right lane when you're driving. But yeah, Everlane I think is very pretty. So Everlane is clearly of Fae kind or elves. Most people just say elves, but it's Fae. She has the pointed ears, and she's actually attending to Ceres as she is healing from her wounds. So she didn't actually die, even if she thinks death took her. She's not. Yeah, and Everlane is so sweet and wants to take care of everyone. That's the main role of Everlane in this book, is like, she's this wholesome, sweet, kind, taking care of everyone character. And I was so surprised when I found out she was related to Death. Like, we're not going to keep calling him Death. But the character who is introduced to us as Death is actually Kingfisher. And Kingfisher is an interesting character, to say the least. And I'm really happy that, okay, Ceres crushes on him the moment she thinks she's dying, but maybe it's like a death hallucination, desperate type of thing. But whenever she sees him and, what's his other name? Renfis? Like the best friend of Kingfisher. Renfis? Yes, Renfis again, or like for the first time. She's not instantly like, males! Wow, she's more thinking about her own survival and getting better and getting out of there than actually being like, I'm crushing on all of these fae around me, like some characters in some other books too. So I was really, really glad that it didn't take the insta crush type situation from the first moment she awakens into this other realm. So Ceres awakens in this other realm. Everlane is taking care. Okay, Ona, your comments are so on point today. I'm really, really happy that you're here. Ona says, who doesn't want to see a hot man while thinking you're dying? Yes. Yes, one of the first things that Nila now comments on that actually happens. So Ceres, where she comes from, is this like desert city. There is no water. There's like a very small water resource. I think it's like 3 glasses of water a day, which is like really not a lot. And when she awakens into this Fae realm, she doesn't know it's a Fae realm at first, but she gets handed a glass of water and she like drinks it. She's allowed to drink it in its entirety, and she's like shocked that there's like a pitcher of water and she's getting a refill of the glass of water and stuff. It's like 6 ounces. I don't know what 6 ounces is actually. Like, I live in Belgium, and here we have liters. And yes, this is my favorite type of water. This is 1.5 liter. If someone can help me out on how many ounces translates to liters, I'm just going to assume it's not a lot. But yeah, so Ceres awakening with the water, 1,745. Yeah, that's about 1.5 liters. No? I'm gonna quickly Google that. 6 ounces of water, 2 liters. That's 0.17 liter. Oh, Jesus, that is not a lot. That's like, I think 1 glass. Wait. 1 glass of water, I think, is more, because a glass is about 200 centiliters. So 177 is less than 1 glass of water. Like, holy shit. That is not a lot of water at all. So yeah. Ona lives in Canada. She moved from Belgium to Canada, and I understand why. Yeah, and exactly. The water that Ceres and other people in Zilvaren are drinking in the 3rd rank of the tiers that they have is not even clean water. She steals clean water, if I'm not mistaken. She goes into like the the underground where the water flows, and there she taps off more water. She steals water to be able to survive, which is like kind of insane, honestly. Like, can you imagine having like a glass of water a day in a desert city and being expected to survive and work and everything? Like the situation where she comes from is such an extreme to where she's going that like even the war zone that she's going to has better supplies and rations and everything than she had to begin with, which is something that I didn't really think about too much, because she goes from extreme poverty to then going into this like royal situation. But she very quickly goes to the battlefield as well, and there like the situation is like, it's not good, but it's still a hell of a lot better than where she comes from. The rebels, her mom protected, taught her how to siphon water. Yes, exactly. But we only know that at the end of the book. Like, I felt at the beginning of the book, they talk about how she steals water, but they don't really tell how like that practically worked. So about all of the rebel situations and stuff, we only know more about it near the end. I feel like her combat training, we know she can fight at the beginning of the book, but we don't know why. We only know a little bit about her mom, and then during the book we puzzle the pieces together as more and more information about her emerges. So I really liked it, to be honest. I couldn't survive in that world. I drank way too much. Yes, same. I drink about a bottle a day, even more, because at work we have different water. Doesn't really matter, does it? So we are now finally in Evelia. So Evelia is the realm where Ceres wakes up in, where she's being attended by Everlane, where Renfis storms into the room, where then Kingfisher also comes to them. No, Renfis comes to take the necklace that Kingfisher has given to Ceres in order to survive. We don't know what this necklace is at the beginning. We only know that it's like some sort of token for protection, for safety, more or less. So the token is then taken by Renfis and in order to be given to Kingfisher, which unfortunately doesn't happen, because when Ceres is awake and fully recovered, well, fully recovered is a big way to describe it, but more or less recovered, she's taken with Everlane to the king. And the king is a piece of shit. And I noticed this from the very start of when they are being introduced, and Everlane has to be like super like, oh, my lord this, my liege that, and everything. And I just felt like the way it was set up, I think his name is Bellicon. I found that he was just like a cruel king. And he reminded me, Bellicon, yes, thank you, Nila. He reminded me of the queen that is reigning in the human kingdom, so to say. And I felt the whole situation there, even though the people aren't being oppressed, it feels a little bit, it still felt like, what is going on here? Why is there war? And then we discover that there is fighting happening somewhere. Ceres is kind of like introduced there, but she has to have a use for the kingdom that she has to find out together with Kingfisher. And Kingfisher's first chapter, where he's actually introduced, is called The Dog. I didn't know why at first. I was like, why is this chapter The Dog? There's no dogs in here. But Everlane takes Ceres with her to the king. There's like an audience happening with the king. And whenever her audience or introduction to the king as like, this is the human that opened the portals kind of situation is done, they carry in Kingfisher. But he's treated like shit. He's treated like he's like the worst fae that there's ever been, like he's worthless, like he didn't just save Ceres, and he didn't just travel through these pools that have been closed for X amount of years. Like, I think it's like 100 years at this point that these pools have been closed. So it's kind of like, what do you expect? And we also notice at the end of this scene where like Kingfisher is kind of like thrown to the ground and like, I'm not gonna say he's maltreated physically, but verbally, holy shit. Um, and that's the moment where he needs to make a deal kind of to get back to help Ceres because he's the only one who can help her with the alchemy that's necessary to control the Quicksilver. So that's where, for me in the book, it got a little bit muddy because I had no clue what was going on. Because, yes, she can hear metals, but it wasn't like, what is she going to do with them? And that is also when she starts taking lessons. She has a week with Kingfisher, Renfis, and Everlane, and then also like the history guy, the scholar, the librarian. I don't have his name written down. He was funny though, with the crackers in the library. So Ceres has to learn about this kingdom where she now is a part of, and she also needs to learn how to control the Quicksilver and make apparently safety tokens. I'm going to, because we have been talking about water and I've been talking for almost 40 minutes, I'm going to quickly take some water. And I would love to know, for the people who have read the book, the first impression on the court and on the Fey realm and how we have been introduced to it. Because I found the contrast between Everlane, who is like super soft, kind, trying to help Ceres find her way, get better, and then the king. It was like an extremely big difference, and the way that she's kind of just like seen as important but also not important enough to receive like actual a lot of help. It's kind of like the king feels like he dismisses it and just wants to get rid of her. That's what it felt like to me. So I'm going to try and get some water, a day's ration for Zilvaran people apparently. So Renfis was the one who saved Kingfisher by pointing out that he was the only one that has survived going through the Quicksilver pools without protection. Yes. Every day the king gets out of bed and chooses chaos. Yeah, the queen as well, I felt. And this was only the first one we had been introduced to. So yeah, Belicon is the king of that kingdom. And I'm going to already tell the spoilers because we've all read the books. Belicon actually is the dad of... Wait, not of Kingfisher, stepdad. But he's the actual father of Everlane. And at the end of the book, we discover that he always wanted a son and he didn't even want her as a daughter. But their mother is the same. So Kingfisher's mother was married to a man who later in the book is actually discovered or like unveiled that he was actually kind of a hero. And Belicon only wanted to marry his mother for the lands and the title and her riches, apparently. And of course, to make another heir. But that heir turned out to be a girl. So when they dropped the little bomb of the ages, and then that Everlane and Kingfisher are actually related, I was like, what? Because Kingfisher, the way that he is at the beginning of the book, you know, the Grumpy and Sunshine comparison that we often have in relationship type books? Well, I had this with the two brother and sister. So the brother Grumpy, the sister Sunshine. I'm going to quickly read some more comments. So yeah, you knew from the beginning the king was up to no good. True. I felt that way as well. I felt like the king was only interested in his own benefit and riches and not in what is actually going on. And at the end, that turned out to be true, unfortunately. Lovely. I found this part a bit slow, to be honest. I understand the transition needed to be there, but it felt a bit slow. The beginning of the book was quick, and it was slow until they used the first portal. Yes, exactly. That's what it felt like to me as well. Okay, it was a little bit needed to get more information on the realm where they are. And like, she has just almost died, so it's normal she needs to recover a little bit, but I felt like they could have gotten into the alchemy part a bit faster. I loved the alchemy part, by the way. So the magic system of this book, we didn't really delve into much. I feel like magic is there, and the magic users like Kingfisher and like Everlane, they can use magic, but it's not described how. Is it innate magic? Is it taught magic? Is it something else completely that we don't know? But what we do know is that the Quicksilver magic is something that alchemists knew how to do, and you either are born with that knowledge or not, or born with ability, but then you have to like know how to work with it as well. So I felt that the magic system was not really presented well, or maybe they don't know it, or maybe it's too obvious for the people in that realm that it's not needed an explanation, but they try to stuff the history of the world into Ceres, and she's just like, no, I'm out of here. I'm going to do alchemy with Kingfisher. She's like, I don't want to read books, thank you, but no, thank you. So the grumpy, I kind of like the grumpy. Yeah. So Ceres is grumpy a lot. She reminds me, okay, I'm an Aries, so I'm very stubborn, and it kind of reminded me of Aries energy. And then Kingfisher is also very grumpy for a lot of reasons. He didn't have a good life. Like, we know that for the past 100 years, he has been captive. He has been held captive somewhere, but we, at the beginning, don't know why. At the end, we know it's with the vampires, with Malcolm, in this labyrinth where he needs to find a coin. And it's like, I get why he's so grumpy. But at the beginning of the book, I was like, why are you so unnecessarily, like, angry at the world? But it makes sense now. Do I have to say, with this life, I start to remember the stuff from the book that I forgot. I'm really happy that I only finished it 2 days ago. And that I get to do this live now and not in a week's time, whenever, because I'm already reading a new book, but I decided to read the new book very, very slowly. So I would have all of this energy and all of this like mental notes still in here. And I play the book like a story, like a movie kind of. So I have like little clues that lead me from one point to the other. We got hints of the alchemy when she climbed the wall and the dust started dancing. Yes, exactly. We got the tingling sensation that she got at the beginning of the book were already indications that she was an alchemist, but we didn't know what it meant yet. Yeah, I think as readers, we are learning along with Ceres. Yeah. And Ceres is PMSing 24/7. Yeah. But like, imagine, like, first of all, the situation where she lived is super traumatic, then nearly dying, and then going to a realm where like it's not worse because you have food and you have water, but there's a war going on there. So you come from this safe traumatic situation to an even more traumatic situation. So yeah, I can imagine it's not easy. But yeah, I really enjoyed in this book that we were kept in the dark a little bit about a lot of things until they were actually happening in the book. Like the alchemy, for example. She tries incorporating different elements with the metals at first, and it doesn't really work. And she has to keep trying. So what we are now... Wait, I see a comment by Nilla that I really want to read. I hate it when folks say that Ceres is a brat. She has no idea what was happening. Yeah, she's definitely not a brat. She's just trying to survive. She's constantly in fight or flight mode. Like, that's trauma. Like, yeah. And I would be hella suspicious of everyone too. Yeah, I'm actually surprised how quickly she trusted Everlane, because I would not trust anyone. But then again, Everlane really had that gentle energy around her. And I'm very scared about what's going to happen to Everlane in the second book, to be honest, with what happens at the end. But this is about a time where Kingfisher and Ceres is weak together, like him teaching her how to control the Quicksilver, etc., comes to an end. And Ceres accidentally enters into a deal with Quickfisher, which she doesn't really know at the time how important this deal is going to be for her and for the book. So the deal is that Kingfisher is going back to Zilvaren to get her brother, to get Hayden. And in exchange, she has to make all of these tokens to help him, like, and his army. Yeah, we can't forget little buddy Onyx. Okay, stop to the deal that they're making. Once Ceres and Kingfisher get to, at first they're trying to educate Ceres with books. It doesn't really work, and Kingfisher day one takes her to the forge or to the alchemist workshop, and the thing is in complete disarray. There's plants growing through it. There have been animals there, and we discover that there is a fox, and Ceres kind of adopts the fox, and it's a snow fox, if I'm not mistaken, right? I thought it was so cute. And yeah, everyone loves Onyx. I'm sure everyone does. Like, I love animal companions in books. I don't know if you can see it on my shelves, but on that side, it's this side in real life, and yeah, everything's mirrored on camera. Sorry, but here we have the Nevernight trilogy, and Mr. Kindly is the cat familiar of the main character, and I love the cat familiar. I have artwork of the cat familiar and not of the main character. So I think Onyx is going to become that for a lot of people as well. I will wage war if even a hair on his pelt is hurt. Yeah. Also, he doesn't actually, like, at first he bites her, but like, it's defense. We know how a wild animal acts. If I would, like that, go to a wild cat, the cat would slap at me or bite me as well. So that's normal. He reminds me of Miko from Pocahontas. Yes, oh my god, Miko is adorable. Yeah, Onyx is like a consistent, cute, fluffy companion, and at the important times where he needs to be there to like reassure Ceres and like comfort her, he's there. So I think he plays a really big part in the book. And as well, we're gonna get to when she descends into the pool where he runs away and then he comes back. I was like, that was a big moment, I feel. I think otherwise he would have been gone from the book. So Kingfisher, Ceres, and Onyx have been working in the forge together, trying to like make things out of Quicksilver. So at first, Ceres has to learn how to recognize the Quicksilver, then she needs to learn how to use the Quicksilver, how to activate it, deactivate it, and it talks to the people who have the ability of working with Quicksilver or having the Quicksilver. And it's like, at first, with the chanting that we got, where Kingfisher goes like blank, I was like, are we not going to get translations, please? And I was kind of frustrated that it wasn't being translated. Whereas all of the other conversations that they were having with the Quicksilver were in just like the common tongue. So I was like, why is that not translated? But it makes sense at the end of the book. But there we have the deal between Kingfisher and Ceres. But Kingfisher words it in a way that he needs to try and bring Hayden. He doesn't disclose in his deal that he has to exactly bring Hayden. Maybe it's better that he didn't, but anyways. And then in exchange, Ceres is bound to staying there and to working on X amount of tokens, like protection tokens, for his army. So he has like barrels full of tokens that she needs to put protection in with the Quicksilver. She doesn't know how, he doesn't know how, there's no books on how it works. So she just makes multiple attempts a day with silver and with the Quicksilver and with like purifying it, restarting, purifying it again, not finding anything. But Kingfisher's part of the deal is that he goes to find a human. He brings back the raw human. Like, I laughed so hard. So we have at the very beginning of the book the romantic interest, Carrion. He's not actually a romantic interest, he's just annoying. And Kingfisher accidentally brings back Carrion instead of Hayden. And yeah, Ceres kind of loses it when that happens. And like Carrion at first is also like asleep or like in the state that he's in because he traveled through the Quicksilver. And Kingfisher, like he knew, I don't know if it's like pushed enough at the beginning of the book, but he nearly dies on that attempt of like going back to Sylvaden and then coming back to their realm to bring this human. So yeah, tricky Fae logic. And how did we feel on him bringing Carrion instead of Hayden? I laughed. I was like, no, what, how? And then afterwards, so the reason why he brings back Carrion instead of Hayden is apparently because Carrion smells of Ceres because they had interactions once. Like how? Imagine if we humans would also smell that on other people. Like that would be kind of really weird. You know that there was no bathwater for that stank to stick around. Yeah, months ago. But the thing is, I think Carrion has more access to water than anyone else in Sylvaden. Because he's the leader of this gang in the 3rd class. Like, you will have, you can wash yourself. Can't you? Like, if you can drink whiskey in bars and buy whiskey for a random poor woman. And yeah, and the jealousy afterwards was also quite hilarious in the book. Yes. So, Kingfisher takes back Carrion instead of Hayden. They get into this fight kind of over it. And Ceres then knows that she needs to pay more attention to how she makes deals with the Fae. It was a really good reminder, I feel, to how Fae magic and Fae deals work, because in some books I feel it's not disclosed enough or not brutal enough, maybe. And yeah, Fae sense of smell would be the worst. Exactly. I'm gonna have to drink a little bit more. My voice is getting a little bit sore. Oh, better. Imagine having only a glass a day. Like, that still shocks me. That's one of the things that shocks me most, is like the little amount of water. Yeah. Then we also have a moment. Kingfisher and Ceres start to become more acquainted with each other. And Ceres wants to steal something from Kingfisher, and she finds the best way to pull him in for a kiss and more, of course. So that's, I think we're about a fourth into the book at this point, when the first like intimate action with the two characters starts happening. She's constantly talking about him whenever he takes his shirt off, and like every outfit that he's been in is been described to a detail. We don't know how he feels about her at first. So that's like one of the, yeah, she climbs, yeah. I was trying to keep it gentle for the last scene, but yeah. So they're in the forge, they're working on something, and I think he takes his shirt off. I think that was the start of this interaction. And they have been teasing each other, like bickering about kissing each other, doing more. That I think at one point he is talking about lying, and she asks him the size of his dick. And he tells her something about the thing that is going to satisfy her or something, that he doesn't tell her an exact size, but he gives like a snarky comment, and in the end of the book it ends up being true. Anyhow, yeah, insert romance book cover. I'm really happy that they didn't. I'm really happy that for the cover art, they focused on the Quicksilver and the armor and stuff, and not on how ripped he is, because that got described quite a lot. So Ceres ends up climbing him like a koala going up a tree. Exactly. And she steals something from him, which then afterwards is, of course, thrown back against her, and she steals a ring. So Kingfisher is constantly wearing a necklace with the token that she's trying to replicate, kind of, or make multiples of for the rest of his army for protection against evil. And the Quicksilver, of course. And he's also always wearing a ring that has also been told to have like protective powers or something. That's what is insinuated at the beginning of the book. So she steals the ring from him. I'm not exactly sure what happens exactly like that instance there after it, but the romantic interaction ends abruptly. I'm not sure if they then are going to run away or like try to escape because the week is almost over and they've not really made enough progress. But I feel like this is the point where she needs to get on the horse. And we get in a lot of detail how sore she gets on the horse. Um, I haven't. I don't think I've ever ridden horses like a lot. I did so as a child a few times, but we always owned a lot of horses. My grandparents at least did. With the ring, she runs into the basement to get back. Yes, yes. Thank you so much, lovely. That is one of the parts that that got away from me. So at first, she climbs him like koala climbing a tree, kisses him and more, steals his ring, and she wants to use that ring to go through the Quicksilver pool to save her brother, and then they end up making the deal, and then he brings back the wrong person, basically. Thank you so much for helping me with that timeline, because that is like the muddy part of the book for me, because everything is happening more. It's not fast, it's not the beginning of the book Indiana Jones fast, but it's still like a lot is happening in a short amount of time. I see a lot of people popping in and going back out. Hi, if you're staying, welcome. We are talking about Quicksilver, the book, and we are now at the point where the pool. Yes, exactly. So we have our main character, Ceres, and then our second main character, Kingfisher. Ceres has stolen one of Kingfisher's rings that she thinks has magical powers to go through the Quicksilver to activate it. And then she can go back to the human world, to the city of Silvaren, to bring back her brother in exchange. Well, in exchange, not really in exchange. Instead, Kingfisher ends up making a deal with Ceres. He goes back to the human realm to maybe bring back Hayden. Doesn't bring back Hayden, it brings back Carrion. But in exchange, Ceres is now bound to him to make these artifacts for him. So opens up the pool, which is gonna alert Belicon, so they have to leave a road trip. Yes. So Kingfisher, there is another way of traveling that he can use. He can make these shadow portals or dark portals. I'm not exactly sure of the name again. Too bad they didn't have an epic road trip playlist. Would have made the creepy forest better. Oh my god, yes, the creepy forest. So the pool of Quicksilver, Kingfisher goes in. She needs to deactivate the pool and then reactivate it an hour later. The Foxy was with her, ran away, came back. What else happened? So Kingfisher comes back with Carrion. They kind of teleport. They carry Carrion in a bag, I think, on the back of the horse. Or is he actually in front of Kingfisher? I can't remember exactly. But yeah, so they have to get on horses. Renfis is going to come after them somehow because Kingfisher has talked with Renfis about it. So Kingfisher, Ceres, and non-active Carrion, best way to describe Carrion being carried on the horse, are traveling to a tavern, I think it was, or like an inn or something, and they have to, like, at night go through a forest. And Ceres asks him if he can see, like Kingfisher can see in first. It's like, yeah, I can see everything clearly, and she can't. And he's like, oh, do you want to see? But there's all of these creepy things happening. So it's like, as we say, it's the creepy forest. It's actually a haunted forest because all of the people who passed away in that forest, their spirit kind of lingers on, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's the spirits that die violent deaths that inhabit the forest. And yeah, no, Billycon, stepdaddy, the king, didn't know that they took off. I don't think he gives a bleep about it. I'm gonna take more water. Oh no, this is more than the Zilvarin. third rank Russian, and it's an hour. Oops. So yeah, we have our party of two, party of three technically, Kingfisher, Ceres, and Carrion taking off on horseback to somewhere that is farther away from the castle, where Belicon is with Everlane is also remaining there. But they get to an inn, and in that inn they drink and they wait for Ren to arrive. So Renfis is actually like this best buddy of Kingfisher. He's not the ever grumpy one. He is kind of realist, more on the world. He doesn't have a dark past as much as Kingfisher does, but he is, I think he's his second in command, and he has been in charge of leading the war that normally Kingfisher was leading, but Kingfisher was trapped for 100 years. So yeah, take a drink every time Belicon is mentioned. Good idea. Yes. So the reason that I have to travel to this tavern, to this inn, is because whenever a lot of magic is used, so the tiny portals that Kingfisher makes in the castle to go from point A to point B, suddenly that doesn't matter anymore. Whenever he uses a lot of magic, so big magic as we're gonna call it, then Belicon is kind of alerted by it. So Kingfisher couldn't open his magic portal too close, or Belicon would have known they were leaving. Exactly, that's correct. So it's a different type of portal than the dark portals he's been using to like kind of easily teleport everywhere. Ona, can we say that some of the name choices are a bit odd? Carrion, kind of macabre. It is Carrion Swift at the beginning of the book until we get his real name at the end of the book, which I didn't write down. And then, yeah, Kingfisher is a bird. Yes. Exactly. I felt it was really nice that Kingfisher wasn't too much of a one-note character and that he actually had character depth to him, not like Tamlin. So the inn scene made me feel for Kingfisher. I knew he had gone through some stuff, but seeing how loyal everyone was to him, yeah, exactly. I didn't understand this though, because they say Belicon is already warned because of the Quicksilver opening. What I felt with the situation on the magic usage, I don't know if Belicon would have. It's difficult. I think he wouldn't have cared, but he maybe would have cared. I didn't know. I think Belicon is just evil, and if it's not to his benefit, he doesn't care. Yeah, so why not using the portal to get out quick, since Belicon already knows the Quicksilver was open? There's a difference between the Quicksilver portals and the dark portals that Kingfisher makes. So I don't know. I think Belicon would have been alerted the moment that they had like the opening by Ceres and then the hour and then the reopening for Kingfisher. I was thinking for sure guards would come in and would like take her and stuff. So I was quite surprised that that was successful in the first place. So yeah, the Fae don't like to use their true names, and Kingfisher isn't his real name. No, I don't think so either. Well, it could be, but it's not the entirety of the name. When we got his father's name, like his real father's name, I think maybe it would have been a little more like, we'll see. There's more books to come. I'm really happy, honestly, that this is the first book in a series. This is one of the series that currently with Fae-based stories is one of the more interesting ones that I've read, and one of the ones that I feel like I want to know more about. Anyways, we get to the inn, and in that inn, Kingfisher is recognized, and the people in the inn are actually really grateful that they see him again, because he hasn't been seen for over 100 years. And then Renfis arrives, and they go to the castle, the place where Kingfisher is actually born and kind of raised for the first part of his life, up until his father got it's not taken away. His father fled to the human kingdom to save certain fae. That's something that we know at the end of the book. But yeah, we're at this point now where we actually get to Casa Kingfisher, as we can call it. One of the first things that we notice when we get to the place where Kingfisher actually comes from, and which is like his territory, is the sprites, the fire sprites. Oh my god, I found them so incredibly cute. And this, for me, was also the moment in the book that I felt like Kingfisher was more than just an angry guy. Because with the sprites, and especially one of the fire sprites whose name I cannot remember now, it becomes clear that he is actually someone with a lot of compassion, someone who cares for his realm and like the creatures inhabiting it. And he actually tells Ceres that she needs to step up her shit and like learn about the creatures there and respect them, etc. So I found that actually really cool to read. And Callie Hart apparently has a bonus section on her website that has the story of what Kingfisher did to save the town. Yeah, I know. At the end of the book, there was like this hyperlink, but then my e-reader wasn't connected to internet, so I couldn't click it. But yeah, I do know that there's extra chapters of the book on her website, which is something really cool. Yeah, Artie, the fire sprite. So we get to this place where there is like this portal kind of situation to the forge where Ceres needs to work on the tokens. And the sprites remind Ona of the Habba from Crescent City. I haven't read that part of the books yet. So I have the first book. It's not here, but it's on my other bookshelf. But I haven't actually started that series by Sarah Yemas just yet. Maybe someday. I have it, the first book. But yeah, so we have now the situationship in the Dark Castle, as we're going to call it for easy reference. I don't have the name written down. It doesn't really matter too much. This is Kingfisher's castle. So this is where he reigns. Lehaba was the MVP of the whole series. Okay, now I'm curious to read the Crescent City series just for that. Is it worth it? That's what I've been asking myself about Sarah Yemas's books, because I didn't like Akotar is not for me. And then I also started the other one, and it just feels like every single book is a copy paste of the previous one. And yeah, it's not for me, but it's fine. I mean, I have plenty of books that I do love. So back to Quicksilver. Where were we? So we are now in the territory of Kingfisher, where the war is actually happening on the other side of the mountain. And this is the part where we start getting confronted with the war. So we get to this castle-type situation. Renfis is helping Ceres. Kingfisher is helping Ceres, kind of, but he's mostly putting her in the forge and telling her, you need to make those tokens, figure it out. There is a little bit more Quicksilver available there, or there's like different resources available there. And this is where we get confronted with the violence of the book and the actual attacks. So Renfis tells Ceres at one point early on that they're there, that Kingfisher wants to get to know her better and that they're gonna have dinner together. The dinner scene was funny and interesting, to say the least. Ceres, up to this point, has always been refusing to wear dresses, and she keeps refusing to wear dresses. She's always in pants and a shirt or a top or something. And she has been presented multiple times with dresses. And she has been wearing dresses when she was in Bellicon's castle, but she hated it. And I loved the way that it was described, like with the tight lacing of the corsets and stuff. But ever since they have been into this new place, she hasn't worn a dress, and there's a dress on the bed and she refuses to wear it. And she just shows up in pants and a shirt at the fancy dinner table. Yeah, the dinner invitation was straight from Beauty and the Beast. Yes. And can't climb a wall with a dress on. Certainly. I love dresses, but they're not always practical. So we have the whole dinner situation, and all Ceres wants is to get a drink of wine, basically. But there is no wine on her side of the table, so she asks for it. She doesn't get it, so she just stands up and goes over to where Kingfisher is sitting, like the entire other end of a huge table, and she goes sit to his right, I believe. To the left is where Renfis is seated later on. Like the first dinner they're having is one on one. So she sits at the right side of Kingfisher, not knowing at all what that means. The fire sprites enter the room to serve dinner, and they lose their shit, literally. Uh, Renfis is Lumiere. Yes, he would make a good Lumiere, though. So Ceres goes sit to the right of Kingfisher. I don't think she drags a chair there, or there is a chair there that she uses, but she serves herself some of the wine, which is like Fey wine. It's richer, something. The girl can handle whiskey, so I think she can handle wine, which she does. And what happens then? Like, it's a lot of, they're being attacked. So they are having a drink, and suddenly the glass breaks, and creatures is the best way to describe them, enter and attack them. They are best described as zombie, undead, vampire type, but you have vampires that are like Count Dracula vampires, and then you have vampires that are just like brainless, sucking the blood, attacking creatures, and that is what is attacking them. And the only thing that can kill them or hurt them is silver. And silver is a very, very rare resource in this realm because of that reason, because silver is used to fight off vampires and undead, basically. So this is our first introduction to what is the actual enemy in this book. After that, sidebar, this book keeps being described as enemies to lovers. No, they were never enemies. They were just grumpy and wanted to be left alone. Yeah, it's the grumpy and grumpy trope. Not the grumpy and sunshine, the grumpy and grumpy. Especially these two. So we had the first interaction where Ceres wanted to steal where she actually stole Kingfisher's ring, and then we have a whole lot of nothing happening intimately, sexually, romantically between the two of them, but you know that there's this little bit of tension. At this point, they're being attacked. Kingfisher kind of saves her from the creatures attacking them, and then I think is when they move to the camp, or is it first that they have another like conversation, intimate stuff happening or not intimate stuff happening? That is a little bit my question for you now, if you can remember. But this is basically when they start also taking her with to the war camp. Yeah, they move back and forth from the camp. So because right now they are out of Bellicon's reach, set the name Bellicon, they are allowed, or Kingfisher is using his portals a lot more. So they are traveling a lot between his house castle type situation. Wait. Before dinner, we get to Carrion and Ceres scene where he describes his bed. So Carrion is awake in this house thing, and he actually starts training with Renfis and the other warriors because back in Zilvaran, he also was like a fighter type situation. Carrion wants to know. Carrion exchanged the bath with the moss and everything for new boots. That's what happened. So Carrion has all of a sudden like very good sturdy boots, but he lost one boot. Like when they were carrying him with on the horseback, he only had one boot, if I'm not mistaken. Carrion, comical relief of the entire book, by the way. If you are new to the discussion, Carrion is really the comical relief. So we would have known something was up with Carrion because he was way too comfortable in the strange world. Probably. But then again, if you come from this situation where food and everything is scarce, and then you get put into this realm. Okay, there's a war happening, but you get everything that you want. I'm not sure how I would react, to be honest. Like, if you come from a shit situation and you go into another, a little less shitty situation, even if it's like humans and fae, I don't know. But yeah, I still never saw that twist coming. Yeah. Neither did I. So we had a very fun conversation between Ceres and Carrion, where Carrion basically describes that he has been thoroughly washed by Faye because he stank apparently to Kingfisher, and this is because they had like sex months and months and months before Kingfisher even met Carrion, but he still carried his scent or her scent on him, and it disturbed Kingfisher because he is romantically interested in Ceres but hasn't told her any bit of it. But yeah, he made Carrion get intimately washed with moss on his delicate parts by sprites. Yeah, like it was. When we got the description, I was like, what? Why? How? Why did this need to happen this way? Couldn't have just been like a special shampoo or something? Yeah, the description of it I found a little bit unnecessary, maybe, but it was funny nonetheless. Then we get to the war camp. And in the war camp, Renfis is actually leading everything at first. Kingfisher wants to not be the main focus of his troops, but he is technically their leader, even if he hasn't been there for 100 years. Things happen, people get into a fight, and there is this woman in this camp who is also one of the higher ranking like seniors of the group. She's part of the wolf pack. So the wolf pack is Kingfisher and his closest circle of fighters, generals, whatever you want to call it. Danya, thank you so much. So Danya gets into a fight with the Bard, is what I'm gonna call him. No, she doesn't get into a fight with the Bard. She gets into a fight with Kingfisher, and she's gonna try and stab him. And that is when Ceres calls out no, and she actually makes the sword shatter. And this is when it becomes very interesting Quicksilver-wise and Ceres' abilities-wise, because she actually starts talking more to the Quicksilver. Yeah, and the sword scene was amazing. Yeah, I felt like that was such a powerful moment for Ceres. And then afterwards, when she kind of pulls out the shards and assembles them and then uses them to make a new sword, where she finally clicks with the alchemy system, that was so fun. It felt like such a breakthrough because she had been struggling with this for so long. Yes, Loret. So Loret is one of the other like Wolfpack ones. Yeah, Danya. I think Danya will have another role to play later on next book, something maybe. So everyone like, no, how is the best description to make this? There are special swords in this book, and one of the swords is the sword that Ceres at the beginning of the book pulls out and like uses and reactivates the Quicksilver with it. It is a sword with magical abilities. We don't know exactly which magical abilities until she actually starts fighting with it. Kingfisher also still has an old magical sword with abilities, I think, and then the other swords don't have any magical abilities anymore, because it's the alchemists who put in the magical abilities with the Quicksilver. And because the Quicksilver has been dormant for so long, the magical swords aren't magical anymore or something like that. I love that it was Carrion that was the one to suggest just ask the Quicksilver and say please. Like, that's the thing. I think Carrion knew a lot more than he was giving away on. And maybe, maybe, hypothetically, if Carrion would have helped her more from the start in the forges, etc., instead of going to combat fighting, combat training, maybe Ceres would have found out earlier how the Quicksilver works. Maybe. But at this point, Ceres starts getting more confidence in her abilities in especially communicating with the Quicksilver, and she is allowed to make a new sword, and the Quicksilver agrees to give it magical abilities if the person who cuts himself, like the blood on the sword is the first one to cut, if that person is worthy, then they will give the sword magic. However, part of the deal of her being allowed to make it is also that the sword wants a song. And of course, there is Loret, who is like this bard turned warrior. And Loret actually makes a song for the sword that is supposed to become Danya's new sword. However, when he sings the song, he investigates the sword, goes over it, bleeds on it, sword deems him worthy, chooses him for the sword. And I can't remember, it's the angel's blessing. Loret is Jaskier upgrade. Okay. Now Loret is gonna look like Jaskier from now on. Yeah, in my mind, he's gonna look like that. For those of you who don't know, it's Jaskier is from The Witcher. The Quicksilver was a really fun character, in my opinion. Quirky, funny, was something special and new. Yes, I found the Quicksilver in this book super interesting. The way that it's like, it's a sentient being almost. I'm really curious to see how it goes and what it wants next, because the next sword that Ceres makes, I think it wanted a joke, or it wanted several jokes, or something that she's making on, and then Carrion keeps telling these ridiculous dad type jokes. Yeah, the Quicksilver has a mind of its own for sure. Yeah, I loved the interactions between Quicksilver, Carrion, Ceres. Like, she was just trying to make jokes that were apparently super bad, and then Carrion just had all of the jokes coming that Quicksilver loved. Filthy jokes, yes, exactly. And agreed, it was Angel's Light, that the sword that Loret gets blessed with. It's like very powerful against the undead. And Loret definitely deserved the sword a lot more than Danya. Can we have the banter like Gabriel de Leon's sword? Oh my god, yes. I also forget the name, but in Empire of the Vampire, Empire of the Damned, Gabriel de Leon has a sword. I don't know her name either, but the sword has snarky comments, but the sword also has memory loss or has difficulty finding words, and like they're constantly talking when he's holding her, and she also talks to the other people holding her. For these special magical swords in Quicksilver, Ash Drinker, yes. People with Google can find names. I'm just trying to focus on being in screen here. Ash Drinker, because she's broken. Yeah, she has been broken from the start of the books. Oh my god. Also, I hope everyone is as excited as me for Empire of the Dawn. Like, it feels so hopeful. It feels so... It dawned upon me. Oh, no. I'm really curious for book 3. But we'll sidetrack about Empire of the Dawn later, once we're done with Quicksilver, because we're almost there, I think. So we're in the war camp, and all of a sudden there is something... They're calling for icebreaker or breach or something. And what we have is the encampment on the other side. Kimberly Lemming's meat mishaps. Yes, there was a talking sword in it as well. A horny talking sword. Sorry. Sidetrack much. Sentient swords. Maybe I should make a video about books with sentient swords. Idea. We already have 3, so that kind of makes a list. Anyways, back to Quicksilver. We are in the war camp. Ceres has finally discovered how she can work with the Quicksilver, and there is a sort of breach happening. And the war camp is on one side of the river next to the mountain, and on the other side there is like plains and evil, basically. There is also like a city, if you can call it a city. It's more like a castle situationship that it's described as, in my opinion, where the vampire lord Malcolm resides. So there is a breach happening. The vampires are trying to cross the ice that is formed over the river, because vampires cannot cross water normally, apparently. So only when there is like a thick cover of ice over it can they cross. So the entire encampment goes to the ice, they break the ice, and they try to fight off as many of the vampires as possible. For me, at first, it was not very clear why, with their magical abilities, they couldn't attack the other side of the water. But apparently, this is because as long as the vampire lord Malcolm is alive, on that area, there is an area of effect, as we can call it in games and stuff, where Fey magical abilities that are not death related are not working. What a name is Malcolm for a vampire king. Does he wear a kilt? Maybe he should have. That would have made it more funny, though. Yes, I was really floored to get to the vampires. Yes, same. I did not expect this. I know that in a lot of Fey lore, vampires are seen as part of it. For me personally, vampires and Fey are something completely different. Mixing them is not something that I personally enjoy. But for the purpose of this book, I found it worked. Because there has to be something evil. Yeah, like you always have this balance between good and evil, dark and light, etc. I personally thought that there was going to be something more towards Kingfisher's dark powers, because he's like dark and mist and like darkness and stuff. So I personally didn't see vampires coming either, but I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah, the vampires were cool, in my opinion. They are the bad guys in this situation, kind of. But at the beginning of the book, it is also explained, and this is something that I forgot to talk about. The Fae have pointy ears, and they also have sharp canines, and they elongate when they are sexually attracted or like doing sexual stuff. The canines elongate, and like it's also explained at the end of the book that when having sexual relationships, if you drink blood from the other person, it makes this perfect aesthetic moment. Yeah, it's funny. Well, not funny for the point of the book that we're at, but still, it comes back in later. So we have the first introduction to the true enemy and also to the evil that is happening there and what is kind of going on. Kingfisher doesn't say much about the entire Malcolm deal. And then for me, it felt like it was the first trinkles of what actually happened during the 100 Years. That was kind of like when Malcolm like makes the remark at the first interaction that they have, like, good to see you again, or something along those lines. I was like, Nila has to leave. Thank you so much for joining. It's been over an hour and a half. The next book club is going to be also on Friday, the 21st, but then of March. And the book is going to be When the Moon Hatched. So I hope you can join for the next one as well. Thank you so much for being there today. So now back to Quicksilver. It feels like a sports game at times, trying to get back to what we're actually talking about. So first interaction with the vampires, and then I think someone gets really injured, or they at least go back to the castle, and that's, I think, also where Renfis is sitting at the table for the first time for dinner. And Kingfisher also takes Ceres with him to the village where he's originally from, where there's like this festival kind of thing happening. Please, someone help me out. We get to see a more human side of Kingfisher also when we get the first introduction to like his warrior tribe and how he has been trying to keep them safe and how he feels like he cannot be the perfect leader for them, etc. He's basically burdened with a lot of guilt, is what I felt from how we get to know him. And then he takes Ceres, I believe, to his small village where he was kind of raised. And he tells her about this specific kind of cookies. And that's one of the parts that I remember most about it, is that they go there. And then this elder woman comes to him, God damn it, I've been making these cookies and no one wants them here. You need to eat them. And she takes Ceres and Kingfisher with her to have like all of the food. About to lose my internet. See you next time. Thank you so much for joining. See you next time as well. But yeah, we get to the small village in which Kingfisher's mom originally comes from, I believe. And we discover there, because he tells Ceres to like bring a backpack with stuff in it that he has packed for her. They eat too much, drink too much, get drunk inevitably, and she thinks that he's going to take her back to the castle that they were in. But they actually go to this little town square where above the bakery, if I'm not mistaken, he has this like apartment that is like his private space. Now, they haven't been sleeping together up to this point. Nothing romantical has happened with them, I believe, unless like we count the forge interaction where she steals his ring. So this is the point where they're both sleeping in separate beds, even though they are like attracted to each other. And this is like they're growing to each other. But at night, I think this is the point where Ceres hears him like really having nightmares and she goes to comfort him. So this is, for me, the point where their relationship actually starts taking form. And this is the point of the book where we're already like over 3/4 of the book. And I felt it was really nice to not have this insta crush, insta love romantic connection in a book. I felt like here there was a lot of build up, a lot of getting to know each other, seeing each other in different situations, trying to struggle through what was happening there. So for me, the relationship felt okay. She crushed on him when she was dying, but who wouldn't? And he knew about her. So this is the point where we get to know more about Kingfisher's mother, about the fact that she was a seer, I think, or an oracle or a seer, something like that. And she had actually written a book to Kingfisher about his future, and more specifically also about his mate. And in this series, the concept of true mates, like true relationships, still exists. So these true mates are apparently then Kingfisher and Ceres. But she has been described differently in this book that he has from his mother. She has pointed ears in it and stuff. So it's not like they are immediately super attracted to each other, but it takes time for them to like get this connection. I'm not sure if anyone is still here actually, because it's been very silent in the comments. We get to know more about Kingfisher's past, about this prophecy kind of about Kingfisher and Ceres meeting with each other, and also the tattoos. So from the start of the book where we have Kingfisher in the book, we notice that he has tattoos that kind of move. When they have a sexual interaction at this later point in the book, one of the tattoos from Kingfisher transfers over to Ceres. It is, I think, a small bird or a butterfly. And at the beginning of the book, he actually calls her Osha. And at the beginning of the book, he simply tells her that Osha is short for a butterfly name, because butterflies are only a day creature in their realm, and that's it. That's all he tells her about it. At this later point in the book, we actually discover that Osha also means the most precious, that those butterflies are actually seen as one of the most precious things in their realm, that they only live for a day, that they live on a mountain peak, and that the Fae who go there protect the Osha for that day as like a super precious being, so they can like make more butterflies, basically. And yes, Ona says painless tattoos for the win. The tattoos basically appear or transfer and just move somewhere on your body. So with this first sexual interaction, full sexual interaction, we also notice They are not using protection, and this is something that is discussed later. And Ceres is basically like, oh, when I was 14, the queen forced us to get sterilized because we're like tier 3 people and we cannot reproduce. And we notice that Kingfisher's reply or reaction to that is not really a good one, or like, oof, we're not getting kids or something. But later on in the book, we get to know that he's actually super mad about that, because it's something that he thinks is like one of the worst crimes you could do. But at this point, Ceres already knows about them. Jesus Christ, there's a loud motorbike thing outside. Have you heard that? Anyway, Ceres and Kingfisher are in the apartment. They have something going on, but when she wakes up from that night together, he's not there. There's just a portal waiting for her and then a note waiting for her as well that she needs to go through the portal. There is a situation happening at that moment as well where Everlane has been taken with Malcolm. Sure, new body, whatever. We will see. The new body is new at the end of the book. So I'm very curious in the next one how it will impact everything. Also, like, is she still an alchemist in book 2? Curious to see. So we have the whole situation where she wakes up after them having intercourse, basically. There's a portal with a note that she needs to go to the other side. She has the butterfly tattoo. And I'm not sure if this is the point where Everlane has been captured or not, but I know at some point they go back there and then they actually accept their mate bond and with the finger tattoos, because she asks the other healer about her finger tattoos because he doesn't tell her about it and he takes them back away or something. So, like, there's a whole thing about the tattoos and the meanings about them. Which I thought was interesting. I like tattoos for their aesthetics, but of course, if like in some books and series they have more meaning, go for it. And the ending, we're getting very close to the ending of the book at this point, where we have basically Everlane is taken by Malcolm. She's serving as bait. They're trying to find a plan to save her, which involves going to witches. And for some reason, the only reason the witches agreed to it is because of Carrion, I think. Or was it Renfis? It was not for Kingfisher, or was it for Kingfisher? I kind of forget. So there was something with the witches. I think Renfis and Kingfisher went together to convince them to help them out with the Everlane being turned vampire bitten situation. And that's when they get back and they have a plan set up, and then Kingfisher just goes in by himself, but they try to save Kingfisher and Everlane by using the portals. Like, the whole plot thing at the end was kind of fast, considering how slow the middle parts of the book were. So the first part of the book, the Indiana Jones part, super fast, and then everything goes slow. And then I felt, personally, the end situation where they save Everlane was really fast as well, with the portals and everything, and Ceres bringing in the sword, and it was this whole thing that felt like I was missing something. But the deal is that we end up in Malcolm's castle, and they end up having a fight, and there is something with the labyrinth. So we don't know why Kingfisher is not able to talk about what happened to him during the 100 Years. We don't really know that. When we get into Malcolm's estate, is the best way to describe it, there is like this arena where Kingfisher is in with Malcolm, and then also with Bellicon and the Bitch Queen from the human realm. So all three of them are there together. And for me, that made sense. It made sense that those three evil bastards were all in it together. The ending felt very rushed. Yeah. That's what it felt like to me as well. It felt like it should have been a few chapters more, but it's already a thick book. but there is like the whole explanation is that Kingfisher could save his village or like this city with the flick of a coin. So Bellycom like has this deal with Kingfisher. When the coin hits the ground and it turns to one side, one thing happens, and when it turns to the other side, something else happens. So it's like heads or tails situationship. But the coin never hits the ground because Malcolm takes the coin and it's never actually hit the ground. That's the whole reason why Kingfisher wasn't able to talk about it or to like explain to people what has happened, what has actually happened, what he has been trying to do, because it's only said that he killed an entire city, but what actually happened is that Malcolm killed the entire city, turning them all into vampires. And the only thing that Kingfisher could do to save the world from them, from the vampires, is to burn it all down, basically. And the Amarot Nor thing, the words that have been said, then make sense because it's release us. But we only get a translation at that point. At that point, we also get the explanation that during the 100 years that Kingfisher was captured in hell, he was actually captured by Malcolm, who wanted him to be like his intimate relationship with Kingfisher, which Kingfisher didn't want. And then he put him in a labyrinth. And in that labyrinth, he had to find the center of the labyrinth where there is a pile of coins, and he needs to find the one coin that was the one that had to hit the ground and let it fall to the ground so that the deal can be done that he actually made with Bellycon like 100 years ago. There is a big fight happening. You get the impression that maybe they can win the fight. So they have already pulled out Everlane. So Everlane is saved. But I think it's Carrion, Kingfisher, Ceres, and the Bard. Is Renfis in the labyrinth as well? I can't remember. That's how blurry the whole labyrinth situation is to me. But in the labyrinth, basically the first rows of the labyrinth have a fixed path that Kingfisher knows because he's been trapped there for over 100 years, and then he follows, and then they get to this spider-ish creature. I'm very happy I'm not Ron Weasley, but Ron Weasley would have ran. So we get to this creature that sees things that move a lot. So they have to move very gently against the walls to go past it and then make their way to the center of said maze. Now, the way that they want to navigate the maze is by using Ceres's abilities to listen to and to use Quicksilver, basically. So they're using her ability to get to the center of the maze where there apparently is a lot of Quicksilver, or a Quicksilver pool even. And that is how they get to the center of the maze. Once they get to the center of the maze, there is trickery happening there with Bellycon, Malcolm, etc. And apparently, or like the coin isn't there, or they can't find it. Malcolm, all of a sudden, who at first was almost dying, is nearly healed. And then Carrion sacrifices him. I was trying to think about how it happened. If it was first that Ceres goes back into the maze for the coin, that the coins also have Quicksilver, so she's trying to find the coin, the real coin that has a little bit of Quicksilver in it, because it's so old that it still would have contained Quicksilver, whereas the new coins, the decoy coins, don't have it, but Kingfisher cannot sense that, of course. So I'm not sure what happens first, if she goes after the actual coin and tosses it to the ground, or if Carrion lets Malcolm bite him. That is a little bit muddy. Again, the ending was so fast that a big part of it is still like, I've read it 2 days ago and I can't even remember it. But yeah, we have the coin. Ceres finds the coin drops, and all of the spirits of that city that weren't able to like fully die, they suddenly vanish. The arena becomes a lot quieter. Malcolm throws a rage fit. Bitch Queen leaves. I think Bellycom leaves, and the only one left here is Malcolm. He has bitten Carrion because Once Ceres drops the coin is when Malcolm actually comes to Ceres and starts attacking her, I believe. And then Kingfisher comes to save Ceres. And she feels a very strong pull of the Quicksilver. I think she's dying again, but the Quicksilver, there is like this whole situationship ending the book where she is going to be bitten by another vampire because she doesn't want Kingfisher sacrificing a piece of his soul to save her, because he's done that in the past to save the bard Loret, by tying a piece of his soul to that person. But then when Kingfisher dies and Loret still lives, or the other person who has a piece of his soul still lives, he cannot pass on to the next realm. Is basically like the whole lore about the saving people from dying. In D&D, that would be a good trait as well. But they decide to save Ceres from dying. That she's going to be bitten by a vampire, which is more her will than the piece of Kingfisher's soul. And that is where, for me, she gets pulled into the Quicksilver by voices. And where at the very end of the book, she gets pulled into this other realm. So she follows the Quicksilver to we don't know where. It is this like plane where there's two girls, twin girls, the twin sons apparently, that they have in Silvaren. And they talk to her and they like tell her that that Ceres needs to come to this god. Now, the gods in this book have not been active gods up till now. We have seen statues of the gods. We have had talks about gods and about their powers, and there is one god that is avoided at all costs, and it's the god of chaos. Who is the god that we encounter at the end? The god of chaos. Now, this god gives Ceres the power, or like the choice to return. And he also tells her quite a bit about what actually happened, so that there were fates and that someone meddled with them, and that the fates always, like, the history will always return to its course. It's like a river. You can divert the river, it will always flow back to where it needs to flow. So Ceres actually would have been born years and years and years ago as a fae, whereas now she was born as human because of certain things happening in the past, certain people not being in the fae kingdom anymore, or being taken from them, being killed. It's a bit muddy for me, and it was all a bit rushed. It was like a big info dump at the ending of the book where basically my heart was breaking because once again she was dying and they were trying to find a solution. And I just wanted for her and Kingfisher to be together and to be safe. There was another sexual interaction between Ceres and Kingfisher before that, I think, with the magical tattoos on her hands. Now they were staying. They actually have abilities. Malcolm sees that at the total ending. The end felt extremely rushed. And we end the book with Ceres waking up and being half fae, half vampire. And now she suddenly is the new queen of the vampire kingdom. That's the end of the book, basically. So we are left with quite a big cliffhanger on what the fuck just happened, or what the fuck is going on, and what is going to happen. So I think that's the last chapter, right? Please, anyone in the comments, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm just going back. The crown is passed down to a regent's heir, but if the regent is murdered, the crown is claimed by the one who slew them. So since Ceres killed Malcolm, she is now the new vampire court queen, basically. So that's literally the last one. The last sentence: in 2 days' time, you officially become the new queen of Sanasrot. And that is where the book ends. Yeah, that was quite the ending. So how am I going to classify book 2? Is it going to be a fae book, or is it going to be a vampire book? Surprise, surprise. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows at this point. So now that we've gone over the entire book once again, I felt that the book definitely had its very good moments. I think this book for me is a 4-star read because I really enjoyed it. The only thing is that I had some troubles with the pacing. The very fast pacing at the first few chapters, the slower pacing in between, and then the extremely fast pacing at the end, where I felt like I couldn't keep up with what was going on. I did love the book. I loved the world building. I love the lore. I love the Quicksilver. I want to know more about it. It's definitely intriguing. I also loved the relationship between Ceres and Kingfisher. I don't know what else I want to say about this book except that I really liked it. It was quite a surprise for me. I was expecting another book talk hype similar to Sarayima, which fortunately this wasn't. So if there's anything that you want me to talk about this book, or any thoughts that you still want to share, I would love to know. This was quite the info dumpy video about this book. But I felt like I wanted to make longer videos about books and I didn't know how. So for me, a live stream with interaction is something that I personally really enjoy. And everyone who interacted today, thank you so much for being here, because without you, I would have talked about this book for 15 minutes, shut down the live stream, and left. So thank you. A very, very, very big thank you. So yeah, this book has the right hype. Yeah, when I saw it was part of my local book club where Lovely is a part of. I think you're one of the organizers even. So Quicksilver was for the Ghent Fantasy Book Club. If you don't know what it is, I will include the link in, if I can, in the description of this video, if not in the description of another video. But the book club has really good picks. Okay, we've had Powerless by, I don't know her name, which is not my type of book. That's fine. The next book club is going to be about Onyx Storm, which I have very strong opinions on, and they're not good. But I have been wanting to do more book club type videos here and just ranting about books. If there's no more questions or opinions about Quicksilver going on in the comments, I'm going to go to the next book club, which is going to be the March one. And the March one is going to be dragon themed. DK, thank you for sharing. I've been looking at this book for a while, but not sure about it. Thank you again. Yeah, I could highly recommend it. If you like Fae, if you like magic systems that are not too obvious, if you like alchemy and a little bit of like the more sciencey side of magic, I think you might enjoy this. There's a lot of fighting in it, and the characters are very grumpy versus grumpy. I would, if you can, start reading it. I started reading it and I just wanted to read more. Unfortunately, I read it in a very, very busy period, so I wasn't able to read it as fast as I wanted, but I really, really enjoyed it. It took me 2 weeks, but I'm really happy that it took me 2 weeks, that I was able to enjoy this book for 2 weeks. So highly recommend. Yes, Ona, Onyx Storm was trash. Agreed. The March book club. Last time I checked, and that was before I started the live stream, the book with the most votes was When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I have seen very mixed reviews about this book, especially about the love in this book and the relationships in this book. So I cannot wait to read it and have strong opinions about it, because I always have strong opinions about a book. If I don't have a strong opinion about a book, it wasn't a good book. Or it was not bad enough for me to have a strong opinion about. So March book club, dragon themed. April book club. April is my birthday month. It's going to be vampire themed. So I will be putting up a poll somewhere in March for the April book club, so you can vote on it as well. Unfortunately, Empire of Dawn, the third book in the Empire of the Vampire series, is only coming out in November. So yeah, in November, I think the book club will be Empire of Dawn, if we still do the book club by then. So the book club thing, this thing is a test that I'm doing, is something new that I'm trying out. I'm gonna do it for now February, then March, and then April, and then I'm gonna evaluate if it is something fun or not. The book club doesn't have anywhere specific, it's just on the community tab of my YouTube channel. So right now you can still find the voting for the book club book of March, but it's already decided that it's going to be When the Moon Hatched. And then on the 21st of March, I will be doing the next live stream to talk about When the Moon Hatched, similar to today, starting at 7 until when we're done ranting about the book. Ona says, When the Moon Hatched was so good, lots of world building in the beginning, but so beautiful. Okay, that gives me good hope. I've heard from a lot of people that the book was boring, that it was really slow, and that I didn't like the romance. We'll see. We'll see what I think about it. But yeah, so March book club, When the Moon Hatched. April book club is going to be a vampire book. I'm not sure which ones I'm going to put in the selection yet. So if you have anything that you feel is something I should read, the books over on this shelf are my new books.